a bit less than a year ago. Our goal is to connect artists, to mediate them with services that they might not have access to in Uganda. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to connect people that are already doing things here. We started by doing some research. Some of us, you don't see them, but they've been here to help us know better what the needs are for artists, and from all of the discussions we've been having, we decided to focus on a few areas. So this is mental health for artists, career and network development, and the reason why we are here today is legal advice, legal framework for artists in Uganda. And Marten is our host. So
thanks for coming, everyone. Like, I know it's a long way out of, it feels like a long way out of Kampala to come to Entebbe and be in high school. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate that. I know that takes some time out of your day. And we're here for a really good cause. Like, I was really happy to hear from Vien, who we caught up 2 months ago, about the Roundabout mission.
So happy to have you all here, and thankful to the Vien and the Roundabout team. Amazing team.
if you have questions as artists about, I don't know, contract, copyrights, anything that goes through your mind when it comes to legal, you will have the opportunity to talk with these people and to seek advice. That's also one of the reasons why we're here. Going to call my favorite moderator, the one and only Mitch.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, with this so much drip, I don't know why it's not raining. Yeah? Yo, my name is Mitch. I'll be your moderator host. I feel good, yeah?
Hello guys, my name is Vien. I am an artist and a lawyer and the founding director, together with Julie and Sina, of the Roundabout. Yes, I came up with this concept because I've always seen a gap as being an artist and a lawyer, and I've seen how the law has helped different artists to come up and improve themselves and elevate their careers levels they didn't think were possible before.
Do they have a name?
They do, right?
Hello everyone. Hello, this is Team The Vibes.
The Vibes.
You are group number one.
Team Ruba Walter, also known as Uncle Walter, and
Amo.
Yeah. The next team.
We are Team Transformers. My name is Gerald.
I'm Mildred.
Our team is called Smalls with Z.
3 teams, they're competing. It's a competition. Okay teams, are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Guys, once again give it up for the teams before we start. So round one, our first question is, we all know some people really don't like the Kardashians. But why would someone sue Chloe for posting a paparazzi picture of herself on her Instagram page? A, because they didn't like her face. B, because she is immoral. C, because she didn't ask their permission before posting. D, because they are sexist.
This particular section is relevant to photographers and people who are creatives. If you take a picture of somebody, as long as in a public setting, right, or if it's of somebody else, that picture is your work. You own that work. They cannot use it without your consent, without your explicit permission.
If it's a person not of public interest in a private setting, and someone takes a picture of me without my knowledge or without my agreement, do different rules apply?
Well, the rule mostly applies to when it breaks an invasion of privacy.
Here, what we are discussing
Yes.
is simply who owns.
Question 2. Guys, listen to this question, yeah? Alvin Cooper sued for damages worth the 75,000 USD because in The Hope, quotes the movies like The Hope, a year after the movie was out, her character endured racial insults and discrimination. She claimed that it was emotionally distressing to see such big similarities with her real life. Her case was dismissed. Why? A, because she made her case late. B, because she had given permission. C, because she was stealing the idea. And D, because she pooped in a cake.
Some kind of complaint that comes up, you have to be very aware of the time you take to file the suit. You can't be sitting and waiting to complain. If you have a legible suit, if you file it outside of the statute of limitations, it will probably be dismissed.
3 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
1 year.
So let's say you publish a poem or something, and someone publishes it, copies it and puts it somewhere, right, and you want to complain. You have up to 1 year to complain.
But the statute of limitation in Uganda breaks down what is limited. For instance, if it is based on breach of contract, you can't sue on a contract that was breached 3 years ago.
So how am I supposed to get information in the level that other people are? So when can I say I do not have access to even light, forget even the internet? Now I found out. So is there something I could do about it?
Because we do have international copyright laws that apply everywhere.
Yeah.
You should wrap your mind around these different concepts and see how it can work for you particularly. Know that there's at least a way.
This diva is an icon, a legend, and is one of the best standing vocalists ever. But if you dare waste her time, she's taking your time. You had the rhyme, yeah? What 90s pop diva sued her fiancé for wasting her time after their engagement was over? A, Mariah Carey. B, Jennifer Lopez. C, Beyonce. D, Joanita Kawalia. And E, Sandra Sobi. Sandra! Okay. What's the answer?
Yes, if anyone is like aware, they'll know what happened. But yes, this particular case, it's relevant to artists because she sued him for wasting her time. She basically claimed that the time I spent traveling the world with you and going on tours and with Safari, I could have been making money. I could have been in studio recording and like actually making real money. Yes, there's so much with it, right? And it all goes to the record label, and the artist ends up making nothing because of the contract that they signed. So contracts again.
Yeah.
So in case you ever want to use someone's stuff, just write to them and just ask them for permission. They'll probably say yes.
Question 2, round 3. Question 2. Question 2, round 3. Artists pair Jack and Jill were hired to make a logo for a certain fashion house. However, the logo was instead used as an art piece in an advert for television. Yo, this is shitty. Anyway, Jack and Jill felt insulted by the use, but they knew that the ownership rights in the work was not theirs. But the designers, what should they do? A, sue for infringement of copyright. B, sue for wrongful use of artwork. C, sue for abuse. D, sue for insult to a person and reputation.
I need to see what
D.
So this is relevant to you guys who are actually artists, right? Let's assume someone hires you to do something and you know it's going to be used for a particular purpose. But then after a while you see it being used in a magazine or in another particular source of work, you can sue for wrongful use of the work because that is violating the terms of the contract that you had. Yes, you no longer own the work because you've handed over the rights, but you can still sue for wrongful use because you still have ownership rights in the work. Right?
The logo is just for branding and it costs something totally different to make it. So if they don't use it as a logo and make it as an artwork, an art piece, that means they technically used their idea to make something more profitable. So they are within the right to sue them for the wrong use.
I don't want my name on that thing.
Well, if you want to sue for like some kind of violation of your reputation, right, then that's like a whole other thing. But to prove that there's some kind of violation of your person, you have to prove that there's some kind of injury to your person. What has this reputation, how has your reputation been harmed, right? How have you, what does it cause? Have you caused some kind of financial loss because of this? However, if someone produces any artistic work in any course of employment, any copyright or design rights in that work will automatically belong to the employer. The person commissioning that work will, however, have unlimited implied license to use the work without infringing the artist's copyright for the purposes for which it was commissioned. I don't know if that makes sense. So in case if you are an employee of somebody, right, there's still limitations on how far they can.
Round 3, question 3. We all see that several fast fashion designers are stealing designs of smaller brands. However, what does a designer do if a larger brand steals their design? A. Beat them up in the parking lot. B. Badmouth them on social media. C. Sue them for theft. D. Sue them for copyright. Sina.
In Uganda, there's a very thin line between industrial design and copyright. And most times you find fashion designers want to qualify under copyright. In fact, it would be unsafe for you to release your fashion designs and leave them with the idea thinking that you claim copyright. You should instead go under industrial designs, because then you can properly get a certificate from the government saying yeah, so it's just like an addition.
Yeah, you get a budget for it.
To say it can't be copyright. It can be copyright. And in fact, to prove that it is copyright, the best thing for you to do is then show prior art, that it's prior art.
For fashion in Uganda, most of the things are second clothes, and second-hand clothes. And also you'll find a lot of the designers that we talk about, Ugandan designers, you find a number of them, the materials they're using are not, like they are just remaking things that are already there. It's, so it becomes this very precarious thing where did you actually make this, or is it like, is it new? Did you make this? Or are you just putting together different things from other places?
Warren Telecom made hundreds of millions by recording songs through their contract with D-Mark Company Limited for their caller tunes. But why did court force them to pay up to 60 million in damages to the musical group Obsessions in 2010? Answer A. They had beef with the Obsessions. B. Warren did not have a contract. C. Obsessions did not consent to use. D. That was for taxation. Millions by recording songs through their contract with D-Mark Company Limited for their caller tunes.
I've kind of we've discussed before, it's about consent, and they did not give their consent before they used their music on Kola. If you remember the Kola tunes back then in like 2007,
you're very old.
But yes, the Kola tunes came up and they used their music, they made copies of it, and then they made a version of it for the Kola tunes without seeking the consent from Obsessions, because they had permission from DMAC, who are the managers of Obsession, but they did not own the rights to the music. Yes. So even if your manager can't just give away your rights unless you give them permission in your contracts to like do that, but they retain the rights to license, to give out, to sell. That was all still within their hands. So they violated their right and they got money. They got up to like 60 million.
Vanilla Ice Baby left an indelible mark on popular culture. However, how did Queen and Bowie receive songwriting credit? Reveal your answers. What's the answer?
This particular thing, these guys sampled a particular Queen song called Under Pressure, and it's just a bass line from the song. Nothing really is exactly that one.
You see? You even know the style.
See, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, they sampled this bass line, but as usual, they did not get consent. They tried to claim that it was a derivative work, but they still didn't get consent. Because in derivative works, you have to get permission to make something like that. Now, derivative works and original work, right? Let's say you create a piece of work, but I want to make something based off of your work. Let's say based off a version of your work or something, right? I'm going to change a few things, but there's still a bit of your work in there, right? I can get your permission to create that work, and that will be a derivative work. There's this famous joke, I think Madonna, when she made the word derivative, a bit iconic. Madonna was in an interview asked about Lady Gaga. What do you think about Lady Gaga? Do you like her? And she was like, I find her work derivative. Well, like, what does that mean? Though, like, look it up. Everyone was like, oh, that's what it means. But yes, that's what it means. Like, it's just a copy of someone else's work.
Instagram updated their terms and conditions in 2010, and it caused a public uproar and even feedback from Madonna, forcing them to release new updated terms in 2022. Why were they?
Yes. When the new terms of Instagram were released in 2020, people suggested that it allowed Instagram to view things through your camera. They could copy your address book, they could copy your call log, SMS history, collect information from everything you search on the site.
Round 5. Question 1. Much of priceless African art still lies in the Western museums, especially in Europe. What is the biggest argument the British Museum uses to defend their refusal to return African art?
Yeah. So, particularly the British Museum that we all have heard of, they call it the British Museum Act of 1963 and the Heritage Act of 1983, and they prevent them from returning artifacts to us. So yes, technically if they wanted to, they can't unless they change their law.
So that means it's still their artists, though we are having it's a law.
But even worse, we don't have any law that can claim that we own anything. That's the first problem. Right now, there's a whole discussion on what traditional knowledge is. Traditional knowledge is the only right now that's going to help us bring back everything. There's a number of African countries that have been successful ever since the British decided to act like they're apologizing for colonialism. Ever since the Queen died as well, there's a number of even Zimbabwe got back a bunch of their artifacts, if you know. But most of those countries now have laws relating to traditional knowledge. The biggest issue with artifacts, like especially here in Uganda, is who owns them. For instance, when you claim for something and you're saying that, oh, this is my artwork, right? But if it's an artwork and it comes from like culture, like also the Germans, by the way, sorry to say, but they now own back cloth.
Yeah?
I don't know if you know. Yeah.
And talk more on that.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're about to put back cloth in Mercedes Benz, I think. Yeah, it's about to be, back cloth is about to become the interior of, the seats. Yeah.
They own it. How do they come to own it?
They own it through patents. A patent is an invention. So they say that they invented, but you guys know very well that we have made back cloth in central Uganda ever since. So the issue is, if you're claiming it back, are you claiming it as Buganda? Are you claiming it as Uganda?
All.
No, that's the issue. We have no law that describes
You
that.
start to claim.
Another example is Rwanda. Rwanda owns their traditional knowledge. They say if you're supposed to do anything related to our traditional knowledge, you must seek consent from the government. That's an example. We don't have that. Another example, I think, if
the Dogon in West Africa have the same thing. They sued a number of designer houses for using designs that they have because it's traditional knowledge.
Yeah.
You can't just use it anyhow.
And China has the most patents right now in the entire world, but all of them stem from traditional knowledge.
My question is, how do we set a precedent? How do we set that precedent? Because we're saying we don't have a law.
Now, what
right?
he's saying...
Let me finish. I'm saying, how do we set this precedent? Even if we file a lawsuit and it's a loss, right? That's a precedent set. How did the Dogon do it? You know? Is it Burkina Faso? Is it that where they are located just had a law already there for? What do we do?
We're not supposed to push for heritage laws. We're not supposed to push for tradition preservation. We're not supposed to, yes, but that is your budget.
And who is the person that is like a moderator of these laws that are put to for these things to be like, what is the final conclusion about these conversations?
Okay,
who is the person who's like, who has the authority to be like, I give you this permission or I give you this.
Well, maybe just a small understanding of how like nations work. Every nation has its government, right? But the government has three branches. It has the parliament, it has the executive, and the judiciary. The parliament particularly, that's the legislative. The parliament is there to make your laws. These MPs that you vote every day, those guys decide what happens to your life, what you go to jail for, what you can claim. Like, if these guys go to parliament and they're dozing every day when they're discussing a copyright act, what kind of copyright act are you going to get? You know? The problem is the people who are there are not really cautious. Unfortunately, you're right. The people who are there to make the decisions are not really involved. You see them, you meet up with them every day. There are uncles, there are people we see on the streets, are MPs. These people are not really involved in what the artist's wellness is, unless you push it to the forefront. If you look at the countries that have gotten their work back, like let's say Benin and some things, they have been lobbying for their work for years. Their museums, their government, their presidents would go on speeches and mention it. They would go into their galleries and like plug stuff up and they would arrest their people. Like they have done so much just to get their work back.
Putting pressure.
Exactly. So unless you put pressure on these systems, you will always be at the losing end of it. And that's why you have to be aware of what you can actually do.
Because the Parliament of Uganda is actually having a parliamentary forum for creatives, and they are trying to actually make laws and policies that are going to include all this. But I've been representing there for so many times, and what have been surprising me that there are like a little number of people who are representing like the creatives. And as a fashion designer, we have so many fashion designers. I was there and I was representing only one, you know. And this, I feel like there are so many things which are missing, like dances I could not see any, and they have all these old people, you know, the famous ones. And I was like, yeah, something is missing, but they are actually working on this, making policies and laws.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity from the hosts. It was a good experience, and I think it's a good journey. It's a good start to start with. Most of the artists know their art, but they don't know how to handle laws according to what they have. So they will need, from these conversations, they will get a lot of knowledge on what to really do and what to decide so they don't make mistakes. Mostly with consulting the right people, and now being it that we are associating with them, we are having some barbecue with them, it's even more better. It brings more connection, like instead of meeting in an office, it's easier to find a lawyer close to you. You never know, some of the artists are already lawyers, and it's really good way to connect.
I think like initiatives like Roundabout, these are the people who are going to bring the voices for the people on the ground to the government level, and yeah, this is a great initiative, and yeah, I feel like we have a bright future as artists, and we are going to be protected, like knowing all these laws and how they are running.
So for Vien, Julie and me, it's beautiful to see how many people have really come for this event, and also it gives us the feeling that people trust in our work, which is something I'm very, very grateful for. And as Walter also said, it's a starting point. So starting point means that you do something and you see what will develop out of it, you know? Like, we always want to be in constant conversations with the artists and with what's happening around us to also be better and to also define better what the Roundabout can do. Because honestly, we're also still finding ourselves. We have our 3 pillars, which are quite broad, which sometimes people are like, okay, what are you exactly doing? So this event was helping us to see, okay, conversations are needed around legal, for example. Like, there were heated discussions, there was a lot of knowledge going around, and I'm super happy to see how people took this initiative or like this opportunity to come.
The beauty of also what we are trying to do as the Roundabout and any initiatives, actually, we have people that have the knowledge. Like, for example, Vien has a huge knowledge on legal rights and mostly is focusing on artists, and that's great. And I'm also so grateful that we had people adding up to the conversations themselves as artists, because they've been through some kind of issues as well, and they've learned a bunch of things along the way. So the conversation was just so good. I'm so happy that people are here and that to hear that they learned a lot.
And about the game, I saw people who had like different opinions, people who were not actually knowledgeable about the law, express their opinions. That actually opened my eyes to a lot of things, because I never thought of thinking of things in that perspective, but I was amazed. Everything is so good. People are so welcoming. People are, I don't know, very friendly, good connections and everything. So I'll definitely come back if I had a chance.
Personally, I'm very into intellectual property because I'm also a lawyer. And one of the areas I'm really interested in and that I want to major in is intellectual property, creative law, media law, sports law. And being part of the audience today really helped me see the areas we need to look at specifically as Ugandans in the creative space, like where are we lacking, where are we able to make changes. There was something I was talked about earlier that had to do the people are seated around, and the reason we can't lobby for some of our artifacts to be brought back is because we don't value our traditional laws. So we let the EU's laws take precedent over our own laws. The fact that we also basically don't even have a Ministry of Culture and stuff like that, where do we start from?